Well, hello there, folks. Probably the last one from me tonight, this. DELE ALLI. Now, he's probably the big story of the day today. Footballer, ex of Spurs, now of Everton. Didn't think I'd be doing a story on him today, or ever for that matter. I, like many others, would probably have DELE ALLI as probably a failed footballer. Somebody that looked really good, showed great promise, did well, and for the last couple of years has just hit the skids and gone down so fast, it's unbelievable. We've heard today that he's done an interview with Gary Neville on his Overlap podcast, and I think we may have heard some of the reasons behind his demise. If you haven't heard it, I'll run through them quickly. I won't give you exact timelines, I'll give you roundabouts. I've not heard the full interview, but I've had snippets today. I've seen snippets online. They're only snippets. But from what I can gather, I think the bullet points of the thing was he's saying he's really had an awful life, an extremely awful life, an awful childhood. I think he said at 5 or 6 he got abused by a friend of his mother's. I don't know whether it was a male or a female. His mother was an alcoholic, I believe. Alcoholic, I believe. I think 6 or 7 he got sent away, I think, back to Africa to teach him and learn him manners and to bring him up right. He came back to Britain. At 7 he started smoking, and at 8 he was selling drugs. I don't know how the going to Africa and being taught manners helped him. I don't know if he was bumming cigarettes, was given a cigarette and he said a polite thank you. I don't know if when he was selling drugs, people were giving him the money, he was saying thank you. But I don't think the trip to Africa's taught him much, if I'm being honest. I mean, I was being a bit smart there, but if I'm being honest, I don't think it's taught him much. Now, the selling of drugs, I'm sure he wasn't doing it for himself, but for another, for an adult, no doubt. Whoever got him to sell drugs said, look, you're only 8, you're on a bike with a football, stick the drugs down your pants, no one will know, you'll never get pulled up by the police. So selling drugs at 8, I mean, when I first heard that, I thought, I don't believe that, but listening to things, I think it's true. He says his mother in the end put him up for adoption because she couldn't bring him up because of the state she was in, so she's done him a favour there. And he said from about 12 to 16, he had a decent life, a good life with foster parents. I think his problem is, really, he had a God-given talent for football. When he played for Spurs and before Spurs, you could see there was a player there with a lot of skill. If memory serves, he wasn't blessed with great pace, but he had everything else. He was very good up here and good with his feet. Did very well and played for England. But over the last 2 or 3 years, he's done poorly. Now, when I said probably the worst thing that happened that was good at football, it was probably bad for him because probably from the age of 16, when they realised this, he's then catapulted into maybe amateur football and then maybe football for one of the younger teams for a proper professional team. And then all of a sudden your life changes. You're probably away from home most of the time. Then you get to the age where you're a bit older and you're earning money that's more than your friends are earning. You're moving in different circles and all the fame and adulation goes to your head. So he's probably had 4 years from 12 to 16 of stability. And then when he's got older and started playing football, that in some respects probably hasn't helped him. I'm guessing. He's not said that. I'm guessing that. I don't know if that's the case. But you lead an unreal life when you're playing professional football, to my mind. Everybody aspires to it, but only a very few get there. Anyway, he did well with his football. Over the last 2 or 3 years, he's done absolutely abysmally. I think it's not been helped by his struggles at Spurs, because he came across a manager called Mourinho, who was absolutely fantastic and a brilliant man manager with people that do exactly what he wants and it does exactly what he says. When you're struggling, when you're not doing so well, and maybe when you've got a mind of your own as well, and maybe when you don't 100% subscribe to everything Mourinho wants, it can be the devil himself. It can be awful with players. And I think, if memory serves, on a couple of occasions, he was awful with DELE ALLI. He hung him out to dry a couple of times, made examples of him a couple of times, and then I think from there, DELE ALLI as a footballer went down. He played for another few teams where he struggled everywhere. None of us could understand why he'd gone from what he was to what he'd become. I think he went abroad. He might have gone to Turkey or somewhere like that. He's played over there. He's done poorly over there. He's back in England. Anyway, fast forward to today. He's given this interview over the last few days. It's been airing today. I believe he's just had 6 weeks of rehab because he's had a sleeping tablet addiction, because he's tried to block out all his thoughts and all the traumas from his earlier life with sleeping tablets. He finds they knock him out, and when he's asleep, he's not thinking. The lad's been through a lot. He's been through a hell of a lot. And I think coming out today and talking about it and letting people know what he's been through, not only garners a lot of sympathy for him but I think it will encourage people in higher places, like his manager at Everton, Sean Dyche, who again is a great man manager. I would suggest probably a lot better than Mourinho, to put an arm around him, to help him along, to realise what he's been through, and to try and bring him back and bring him on gently. I think he's only 27, 28. I think he's not fully fit at the moment, but he's striving to get fit. I think the fact that he's come out and unburdened himself with all of this, I think maybe a good thing for the lad. Maybe a really good thing for the lad. And I think there's a slight chance, just a slight chance, and I hope I'm right, we may see a footballer return again. We may get something of the real DELE ALLI back with patience and with time. We may do. Great for him, great for his manager, and great for the Everton Football Club. If there's one club that needs something like that at the moment, some kind of shot in the arm, it's definitely Everton. So let's just hope things improve. I was hearing the stories today, or snippets of it, and I'm thinking, I'm sure he was in Turkey for a few months. Imagine being in Turkey, where all this is constantly going through your mind. You know, your childhood and how it's been and how awful it's been. You're in a country that's maybe not as pleasant as the country you come from, in some respects. Really, really, really warm. Mind you, he'd probably be used to the warm because of his upbringing. But he's not speaking the language. He doesn't really know anybody. He's out there on his own. His football isn't going well. Back home, he knows he's being knocked in the press for how much he's fallen. He's probably out there with no loved ones. Must have been awful. He must have had an awful time. Anyway, on a positive note, he's back. He's had some therapy. They try and help him get off the sleeping pills, which is obviously a good thing. His manager, old Sean Dyche, now knows all about his problems and whatever else, and he says he's going to help him all he can. I'm sure Sean Dyche will. Let's hope DELE, let's hope DELE, that the troops rally round you, and let's hope we bring you back to something like what you were, because you were a cracking footballer, my son. Cracking footballer. Let's hope you get back there again. You're 27, 28, you've still got time on your side. I think airing your issues today has been a good thing. I think it can only help you going forward. And I sympathise for what you've been through. You must have had an awful time. Anyway, good luck to you going forward. Good luck to Everton with him.